Peace and love, family. Um, I've been kicking around the question lately, especially with all the reading I've done, uh, all the writing I've done, um, and just thinking. When it comes to being a melanated person, or for lack of better words, let's just say an African American, because that's what if you're living in the United States and you're quote unquote black. That's what they got you down as. That's probably what you self-identify as. So lately, I've really been researching um, what that means, what that status means. Um, as you can tell, if I'm using a term that's a status, then you already know um, I'm dealing with figuring out black people as a whole. Like, what's our nationality? You know what I'm saying? Like in this weird space that we're in. Um, are we African American? Are we black? Uh, Pretty much, those are the only options you have when you're dealing with any type of government document, application, any type of benefit that you're getting from the United States. Um, so that's something that I've been thinking about. Like, what should we, what should our status be, right? Because obviously, in my opinion, um, calling ourselves Black and African American, as I go back and look throughout history, even when that term first came, a lot of people are going to reference, Jesse Jackson. People are going to go back to colored, Negro, um, copper colored. All those things are great, but um, when you're dealing with that agreement, that contract, that application, um, those things aren't on there. Sometimes you'll see other on there. But as I mentioned in the previous video, when you actually go look up what those terms mean, what white means as defined by the government, what African American or black means as defined by the government, um, you always see all the other designations tied to the original people, as if African American or black people don't come from any original people, when science has already proved that the original man is. You should know the answer to that. So dealing with the government body, the United States, I argue now, have we been, you know, dealing with these people? I wanted to use the word contract, but I don't. Have we been dealing with these people out of the wrong status? You know what I mean? Especially with everything that's going on now, with the police and, things that have been going on, like, this is nothing new. You hear a lot of people say, "Oh, we got cameras now. This is nothing new." These things have been happening. Um, but what if we were in a different status? Would our situation collectively be different? Like, my boy always trying to tell me, man, hey, we got to get Trump out of office. Vote Democrat. I'm like, no. Like, what the Democrats did in the '60s, the '70s, and the '80s, the '90s. Like, we don't even got to go back that far. We can just go look at Clinton's like crime bill. Like, nah, man, the Democrats, even it's even documented that they were against a lot of civil rights. Um, that black people were marching and protesting and dying for, getting beat up for, etc. Um, and then me too, knowing that the majority of our peoples were Republican back then, before KKK and other oppressive tactics um, moved us out of that party and kind of parked us into the Democratic Party. And the Confederate Democrats switched sides and became Republicans. Like all that stuff we know about, know of, heard about it, have actually read it. Um, but back to the original question: are we dealing with the United States government in a wrong um, or in an improper status? That's my question. Are we dealing with the United States government in an improper status? Um, are we only getting privileges versus rights, human rights, Bill of Rights? Um, should we be dealing with the government based on Constitution within our proper status? Because I mean, for me, obviously, I don't believe Black or African American is the proper status, man. Just based off history, you know what I mean? Um, and I believe it's no secret. Like we know that so-called Black people, so-called African Americans, so-called Negroes, so-called colored people, so-called copper-colored people, were already in the United States, um, long before Columbus, um, long before the Crusades, right? Um, like these things we should know by now. Like we should know these things as truth, as fact, um, things we can go pull up. I mean, it's the information age, right? Things that we can go pull up. We can go pull up images. We can go pull up the letters of Cortez. We can go pull up these things, and we can arrive at conclusions, right? Factual, truth-based conclusions, and even common sense conclusions. I never rule out common sense. Um, we can arrive at those conclusions. Um, and for me personally, I really don't get caught up in the whole Native American, American Indian thing because the government recognizes that as something different than those of us who subscribe to an Aboriginal um, paradigm, right? The government's paperwork doesn't mention anything about um, Aboriginal on whatever application or whatever you're filling out. I have found or seen in documents, congressional records, and things like that, where you know the term or the word. Let's just say word. I don't even want to get into what part of speech. Just word, just Moor. I've seen the Delaware Indians be likened to Moors. Um, and for context, when I say Moor, um, that's the same thing as me saying within the context of what I'm talking about. Same thing as me saying the black man, right? Um, the African American, whatever. Um, not getting caught up in that whole weird debate because for me and in my research and in my personal journey with this information and breaking it down and dealing with it so that it makes sense to me so that I can put it to use. Like I'm not just doing this research just to sit on it and have something to talk about. Like I want to be able to put this information to use. Um, like through my own research, I know how important it is for identity, right? Um, for knowing where you come from, knowing who you are, knowing who your people are. Like identity is probably one of the most important things um, that one can achieve. Um, coming to the knowledge of, right? It's knowing who you are. Some people call it knowledge of self. Knowing who you are, knowing who you come from is extremely important when you're dealing with people who don't look like you. It's extremely important. Confidence and all other sorts of things come from that. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Um, I've seen Moor and Indian used synonymously. So um, the it's in my opinion, the government saw Moors and Indians as the same people. Obviously, right? They saw them as what we would call today black people. So when I say Moor, that's what I'm talking about. And then too, in the larger scheme, to kind of bring everything that I'm saying to the fold. Um, I know that in different parts of history, what we call the black man today were called different things by different peoples, or called different things by those said black people. Um, so I really don't get hooked into the Hebrews, Moors, Israelites, um, Commission, like because in different periods of time, black people describe themselves different, but at the end of the day, they're all black people. So what we call today black, within a given time period, those people called themselves Greeks, right? Those people called themselves um, Hebrew Israelites. So people called themselves um, what's what people call today Olmecs or the Chi people. Um, like names and how people describe themselves on titles and things that they go by change. But at the end of the day, we're all dealing with the black man and woman. Uh, so yeah, that's just something I've been kicking around. I honestly do not believe uh, we are going about things the right way. Um, like Ice Cube, in my opinion, is kinda on the same track um, that I'm on with. Like, what would happen if we step outside of our United States citizenship, right? And then we begin to parlay with the government as a nation. Like, because in my opinion and things that I'm observing, like when and no disrespect to any group of people, when Asian people come over here or anybody comes over, even our African brothers and sisters, they come over here, and their relationship with the people here, the white people here, the Jewish people here, tend to be a lot different than with the average, quote unquote, African American man walking around here. And I know the political status is different, right? You know, a lot of brothers and sisters when they come over here, um, or even people outside of what we would consider brothers and sisters, people that look like us, right? They come over here, they're foreign nationals, or they're some type of national status, right? And they seem to have a leg up, boom, as soon as their feet, you know, step off the plane or step off the boat, so to speak. It's like automatically they have a leg up over the United States citizen, comma African American. Uh, so yeah, some of the things we have to ask ourselves is what is an African American? Um, what does that mean as far as a political definition? Like, how is that politically defined? How is that defined in law? Like, what does that mean, right? Um, and I've already showed you in the previous video, like those designations, like they never mention African American and Black as tied to the original people. Like, it has to be something up with that. Um, and again, I'm not here trying to give anybody advice. These are my thoughts. These are my opinions. Um, calling a spade, right? There's something up, in my opinion, with United States citizenry, right? And when we check that African American or Black box, based off the definition, based off how the United States government is defining that thing, something's up with that. Um, again, disclaimer: I am not a Moorish American. I'm not somebody in the Moorish Science Temple or none of that. However, I respect information. I don't care where it comes from. Um, I do not, you know, cast away information just because it's coming from our Moorish brothers and sisters who are in the Moorish Science Temple or those that are not in the Moorish Science Temple. I do not cast that information away. I don't cast away information coming from people who believe in the Pan African paradigm because information is information. Like I look at things from a, and if you're a researcher, you know what I'm talking about, from a like a literature review, right? It's unbiased information coming in from all areas, and I'm synthesizing that data either mentally or if I'm in the lab researching, right? Uh, in the lab, I mean, you know, reading, compiling information, not in a like a physical lab where I'm doing experiments and something like that. But I'm looking at all this information, and honestly, it's all painting a picture, which is why now I say that, hey, you know, what we call black people today were called different. They were called different things back then. Like I mentioned earlier, like a black, what we consider a black person today, within a particular period of time, that person will be could be considered a Greek. That person could be considered a Hebrew. That person could be considered an Aztec, a Mayan, an Inca. Like all those, descriptions, names would equate to today what we would consider a black or an African American. I'm a different type of person who subscribes to the Aboriginal concept, and by that I mean that we were already here. Like the majority of us, I believe, were already here. Um, when we got here is different, right? Some of us that were already here when we got here is different. But I do believe that it happened way before, you know, 1492, the Crusades, all that. Um, like, I believe things started here and kind of spread out, right? Um, I also understand that people were coming here. Now, when all that happens, I don't believe we'll ever know. I don't believe we'll ever know. Um, so yeah, I take no issue with um, Pan Africans whatsoever. Um, People that subscribe to Egypt or Kemet, I take no issue with those brothers and sisters because all that stuff's found here. Like those pyramids are here, those hieroglyphs are found here, just like they're quote unquote found there. Like I know, like even if you totally disagree with what I'm saying, at least understand this: that when civilizations were built, those people went to other places and set up colonies. Now, you could you can say that it happened in Africa first or it happened in the Americas first. I don't care. But we as long as we agree on that it happened before colonization, crusades, things of that nature, cool. Because now we have a common argument against a common group of people. Like we can sort out all, the chicken and the egg as far as black philosophy and black history. We can sort that out later. Like we got to figure out what's going on with us and our relationship to the powers that be today. um, and I think that's kind of where we all should be rather than arguing amongst ourselves. So as I deal and kick around, you know should we be looked at as United States citizens? Should we subscribe to that privilege? Should we take that benefit versus something else? Like, is there something else better out there? Um, I'll be posting more content on that. Um, yeah, because I think everybody's convinced that, and even if you're not, like, I'm not here to try to convince you that black people are already here, for lack of a better word, right? Like I said, black people went under different names and different points in history, different time periods. Either those names were put on people or the people actually called themselves the name based off information that they left behind, right? But yeah, I think we really need to take a hard look at our status? Like, has our current situation based off how we are defined by the government, has that been working for us? And in some cases, yeah, there's been, wins here and there, but collectively, man, we're behind the eight ball, something crazy collectively. Like when you look at it um, in its entirety, like man, I don't know, I don't I don't think we are going about this the right way. Like everybody already knows that we need. I hope everybody understands the importance of having a nation and some type of nationality. If you don't, just look around. Like when people from Asia come over here and people from Africa come over here, um, they seem to be at the advantage. I mean, and then you can look at any area. Like for instance, education. Like I know so many people who come over here from foreign countries who get free education. Like it's crazy. You know, they go to school for free, and these people become doctors, uh, maybe even some lawyers. I know for a fact a lot of computer science and degree fields like that. These people and going to school for free. And hey, I'm not knocking the hustle. Hey, do what you got to do. I'm just saying, like, we got people here who don't seem to get that same privilege, benefit, whatever you want to call it. So it makes me want to investigate and critique African American and United States citizen. Like, is that the option we should continue to go by, or should we do something different? But yeah, until next time, I think this is a very interesting and timely topic. Um, Not so much what should black people call, like what should we call each other, like should we be calling ourselves African American, like just in terms of just politics, like just dealing with the government from a from a business perspective, from the context of that. Like I'm not sure if those two options, uh, United States citizen and African American, have served us well in the grand scheme of things. Um, but as the more and more I think about this, the more and more reading and research that I do, like I said, I'll be back, and these will just be quick, just conversations, just me getting my thoughts out there, honestly. Because as a lot of you know, people that are dealing with this type of information, like it's hard to find. Just a common person, it's really not into it, or really not reading it. Just trying to get through the day to day. Like they ain't trying to hear all this right now because there's no real solution. There's no real benefit. There's no real remedy, which is what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to figure out how do I take all this information, you know, that's out there, um, these streams of consciousness. How do we take that and how do we apply it in our dealings with the government without trying to, hey, you're a Moor, hey, you're an Indian, hey, you're a Native American, hey, you are an Aboriginal. Without all that, like we can sort that out later. Like we have a system that's been oppressing us and disenfranchising um, our people for forever. Um, through various mediums, religion, education, all the way down to the food we eat, to the content that we see. So yeah, that's my time, man. Peace and love. Be safe out there. Um, by all means, search, research, read, figure out who you are. Like, go after your identity. Self-identify yourself as something outside of the 1600s. Peace.